The NFL season is finally here, so make sure you're ready with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. It gives you the most live NFL games all in one place, exactly what you need to make your Sundays more magical. Sign up today at youtube.com/Sunday Ticket. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me on this rainy Sunday afternoon is my friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, the Islanders are about 60% of the way through their preseason. They've played 4 games. They have won 2 of them, lost 2 of them. They got a couple left. I know that you have not watched any of it, or at least tried to avoid as much of it as you possibly can. We're going to talk about those games. We're going to talk about some cuts that they made this weekend. But just in a general sense, how are you feeling right now at this point of the Islanders preseason? Their season doesn't start again for another 2 weeks on October 10th. And so there's still a little while to go. But so far, there's been some questions. How are you feeling right now with the Islanders?
I am feeling the same as I was before the preseason started, which is a good thing.
Right.
The only news that's worth monitoring is still the Ilya Sorokin situation, which
Yes.
I do admit is getting a little weirder, murkier.
Yeah.
Not enjoying that at all. But other than that, knock on wood, things have gone pretty smoothly, it seems. And yeah, as you said, I really don't want to watch it, and we're seeing why I don't watching preseason unfold in real time every night. It seems like someone is getting knee on kneed.
Yeah.
And there's that tweet was making the rounds by one of those hockey podcasts. I can't remember which one, but they're all the same anyways. Like the two guys sitting in a wood paneled studio with mics hanging in front of their faces and like a little table in between them. And they tweeted out the video of when Dion Phaneuf rocked Kyle Okposo in Calgary. And we talk about that around this time every year, but one thing we never mention is Pascal Morency just going full Eric Goddard fight night, jumping off the bench.
He was a maniac, that guy.
He was in. How did that guy not make he never played a game for the Islanders, which is a shame, because just by doing that, if I was Scott Gordon, I think was a coach then, I'd be like, when we're out of it, this guy gets a call up, like he gets a game. He gets whatever benefits you get by playing just one NHL game for just doing that was so what a moment. I mean, and I do it's not a fun video to watch because of the Oposo thing, but it is it is worth just like keeping your eye on Morency because he doesn't even give it a second of thought. Like, oh, this I'm gonna get suspended. He's just like, I'm going. Like,
Right.
I don't. He probably doesn't know Kyle Oposo from a hole in the wall, but
Right.
really,
They
yeah, like
met him that morning, basically.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then stick it up for him, and it's but yeah, that's I mean Patrick Laine, Drew Doughty are hurt already. There's been too much, and I just don't want like when you're watching a preseason game every time Matt Barzal or someone would step on the ice, I wouldn't be able to handle it because I just don't want to see anything bad happen. And I keep saying like there's all downside to preseason, and also like I know I'm cynical. Obviously, as a sports fan, I'm jaded, but I also think everyone the storylines that everyone gets caught up in preseason, they're not there's only storylines because it is preseason. Last year
Right.
was Julien Gauthier, right? And
Yeah.
he'd had very little impact on the Islanders last year.
Mm.
He had a little 3-week span, and now it's the Liam Footies and
Yeah.
of the world. Gauthier again,
Yeah,
having
of
a
course.
good camp. Dennis Cholowski, it seems.
Right.
Like I don't want to get like caught up into that and get like my hopes up because in all likelihood those guys are going to be footnotes in the season. I mean,
Right.
did we mention the name Kyle McLean once last preseason?
No, of course not. Which
Yeah,
made
right?
his call up all that much more surprising.
Exactly.
basically.
So like that's what the thing. Like, I just don't think you can really get anything out of this.
Yeah.
So, and look, I'm happy to let other people enjoy it and get caught up in the storylines and get excited for hockey. I am excited for hockey. I don't need
Right.
preseason hockey to get my juices flowing.
Mm.
I'll just continue to watch, late 2000s or early 2000 Islander highlights and just know that it's not middle of July when I'm watching them. It's the end of September, so the real stuff is happening in a couple weeks.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, again, is it a cynical way to look at the preseason? Yes, but it's not without reason. Like, there's a reason for this, and like you said, I mean, right now, in case you haven't seen it, Patrick Laine took a terrible knee injury, and then this guy, Arbor guy, I guess, fought whoever it was, some dork on the Leafs, who's never going to play a game for the Leafs this year. Paré fought him, and people are arguing whether or not Czechai was doing the right thing, but he was protecting Laine and like blah blah. And meanwhile, all these Leafs fans are like, "Well, man, that's a really tough beat for Laine." And it's like, yeah, we're all trying to find the guy who did this. Meanwhile, it's the Leafs guy who just literally stood there and stuck his leg out while Laine was skating past him and took him out at the knee. So there's a lot of stupid stuff happening, and the season hasn't even started yet. Won't even start for another 2 weeks. So there's a reason why people are cynical about the preseason. And that being said, I think there's been a lot of interesting stuff happening so far for the Islanders. We're going to talk about it and get into some cuts that were made today. Before we do all that, reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Membership gets you ad-free episodes, plus bonus podcasts, written posts, and a whole lot more. Or you can join for free to get our weekly release calendar and all announcements. So sign up today any way you can, patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Okay, so let's talk about games real quick, just running through these scores. So a week ago on Sunday, the 22nd, the Islanders beat the Devils 4-2. Nico Hischier scored a goal early, but then Lee and Bratt scored in 30 seconds, basically. So it was 2-1 Devils. And then it was all Islanders. Siplikov made a beautiful pass to Julien Gauthier. Cam Thiesing skated through 5 guys like he was Mario Lemieux. It was pretty wild. Holmstrom had an empty net goal, so it wasn't too bad. Then they followed that up with a 6-4 loss to the Rangers, where, of course, they blew a 4-1 lead, despite the fact that their top line of Anthony Duclair, Matt Barzal, and Bo Horvat was basically just globetrottering the Rangers all night. Talk a little bit more about that blown lead in a few minutes. They followed that up with a 2-0 shutout of the Flyers. Matvei Michkov scored into the empty net. People were rejoicing and going crazy. He scored another couple of goals last night, so people are going completely insane, which will be hilarious when the Flyers miss the playoffs by 10 points. The Islanders, they got shut out, but the 2 stars of the game were Sam Ersson in goal for the Flyers and Marcus Hogberg for the Islanders, who was spectacular. I mean, it wasn't due to a lack of trying they got shut out. They played really well, but Ersson was really good, and Hogberg was only 1 goal worse, so it's pretty funny preseason game. And then most recently, Friday night this week, the Islanders beat up on the Devils 5-1 again. Con McLean had a beautiful breakaway goal. Liam Foudy, who you just mentioned, scored a goal. Really complete game against a Devils team that was mostly NHL ready, except for missing Jack Hughes, which is a huge deal. And I'm here to tell you, and this is the last thing I'm probably going to say about the New Jersey Devils in this episode, without Jack Hughes, this team is about as mid as it gets. So take that for what it's worth. Also, Luke Hughes is obviously still hurt, so I thought that was kind of funny. Again, I know you didn't watch any of these, but you're online all the time. You heard about anything. Was there any sort of takeaways you took from these, aside from, this is why I don't watch preseason game, but is there anything that came across from these games that kind of caught your attention?
Yeah, in the middle of that Rangers game when they were up big, I was like, oh God, like this is it was giving me anxiety because I was like,
Right.
can they save some of this for the regular season? And I was joking with someone saying like if they go undefeated this preseason, I'm gonna be pissed.
That's the
And
kiss
10
of death.
minutes,
Yeah.
yeah, 10 minutes later, maybe Patrick Waugh felt the same way, and he told Henrik Tikkanen to get in there, and so the Islanders go down and lose, which is, I mean, who cares? And so that was worth watching. I did think it's been pretty funny that people, it's almost like everyone just forgets how the ebbs and flows of an NHL season. And I
Yeah.
get like we're all prisoners of the moment. Like we don't know for sure that tomorrow is even going to happen, but you do have if you do take probabilities into consideration to think, okay, it is going to happen and the hockey season will unfold like most other hockey seasons. This stuff will, as I said, just be completely forgotten by the middle of October. And everyone's freaking out about Simon Holmstrom, like winning the second line spot next to Nelson and Palmieri.
Yeah.
And then a day later, it's someone else because
Yeah.
here's, newsflash, like it's training camp. Like
Right.
this is how things go.
I hate line juggling during the regular season, and I especially hate it during the preseason.
Yeah.
For that exact reason.
Let's just not get ahead of ourselves here.
Right.
And declare anybody anything in a game in September. So yeah, and I really wonder if the way that we make fun of Maple Leafs writers and the media machines up there, but I do wonder, since they are the ones with the biggest cloud or the biggest, have the biggest audiences, and that stuff just makes its way around, that every other market thinks, oh, like that's the way the sport's supposed to, if they're covering this team like this in Toronto, which is the kind of beating heart of the hockey universe and hockey media, that means that we need to cover it like this. Like I don't need to know if Kyle McLean and Bo Horvat have like a new secret handshake or anything like that. Like leave that stuff for Luke Fox. We'll get to that stuff later in the season, I guess.
Yeah.
And but yeah, other than that, like nothing. I really didn't. As I said, like every game, I just want to see that everyone's healthy. I guess the Marcus Hogberg's game is maybe the most notable of if we wanted to do a tail of the tape analysis here. I think that's probably the most notable thing that happened, was that he looked good.
Yes.
Because with the Sorokin situation looming the way or trending the way it is, we might need Hogberg to sit on the bench for a few games until he plays. But other than that, yeah, I was more irritated by like the way the opposition has been covered, like the Michkov stuff. It's once again, you want to get excited about this guy and you're a Flyers fan, go right ahead. But if you want to get excited about this guy and you're an objective reporter who's covering the Flyers, you just happen to high five your friends when the Flyers score. It's a different situation. Like, let's just wait before we get carried away and with this stuff. But it's a Cynic's guide to preseason hockey, I guess, more than anything. But I'm just it's so irritating. So the Islander stuff, like I would focus on is like, yeah, Hogberg was great. The race for the last forward spot seems kind of interesting, but I think everyone's kind of missing the forest for the trees there. Like everyone's like, oh, who's gonna get it? Like, is it gonna be Foudy? Is it gonna be Fasching? Gauthier? Is it gonna be Matt Martin? And I think everybody's missing what the real storyline is here. Like nobody's mentioning Oliver Wahlstrom's name. And but here's the kicker, right?
Mhm.
Nobody's mentioning Oliver Wahlstrom's name, and he's competing against Hudson Fasching, Liam Foudy,
Right.
Matt Martin, and Julian
Mm.
Gauthier. Like that.
Yeah.
That's like the most damning thing of the
Right.
whole Oliver Wahlstrom situation.
12th overall pick, right? Was that
Right.
what he was? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, Gauthier was a first round pick, and Foudy was, I think too. But like, this is Oliver Wahlstrom had some considerable hype, especially in this market,
Sure.
and has definitely had some breaks go against him. I don't discount that, but he's fighting for a roster spot against this cohort of players. I mean, you
Mm.
could even throw Siplikov in there too, like a guy who hasn't
Right.
played in any North American games.
Mm.
Like if you're not able to beat out this cohort of players at a training camp where you're the guy who's like been the Islanders have invested in the most and developed on their own terms, and would, in a best case scenario, you would be the guy winning this role.
Right.
Like if you can't beat out Liam Foudy and Hudson Fasching and Julian Gauthier and Matt Martin, we're heading for a bad situation.
Yeah. I stand corrected. Oliver Wahlstrom was the 11th overall pick.
Yeah.
But you're right. Engvall was 21st, and who was the guy? Foudy was 18th. So yeah, so these are all former first round picks, all now vying for this same sort of depth role on this team. And it is weird. It's very weird. And Wahlstrom, to his credit, he scored a goal in that 5-1 win against the Devils. But the previous games, he looked fairly invisible to me, and that's nothing new for Wahlstrom. And he has a lot of eyes looking at him, and a lot of times he just is kind of like the incredible invisible man. Like he just doesn't really do much. But this training camp was a chance for him. I think Butch and Brendan might have said something like, oh, he's got to come out here and make an impression, and he's this is a big one for him. Like I think we've gotten the impression of him that we're going to get. Like we know what he is now at this point, and
Yes.
and I think the Islanders are at this point kind of stuck with him. Before we move on to the cuts and the roster and stuff like that, I want just one last thing on the games. You're right, Hogberg was terrific. I thought that was great because third goalie for this team, again assuming that Varlamov Sorokin is healthy, we'll get to him in a minute too, is a huge deal. And if he can sort of star and take the starter net for the Bridgeport Islanders, that would be a huge boost for the Islanders. We have not seen Keith Kincaid play at all this year, and the Skates of the States guys were mentioning this as well, which is a little curious. He came in for rookie camp. I think he's still here. We haven't heard that he got cut or anything, but he just hasn't been heard from. Maybe he signed with another team. Maybe he came in just as a favor. I don't really know.
Well, that's what Lou said. He said that, remember, we were like, he said he did us a favor in the summer, and we're doing him a favor. But people got, it was like the only bit of news in the middle of September, and people got carried away and made their funny jokes about Keith Kincaid being at rookie camp. But that's what it is. Like he's just going to be a part of the shadow team. Like you need goalies for practice. And
there you go.
You need.
Right.
He might be the only member of the shadow team that's never played for the Islanders, but
he's
I don't
in spirit. He's an Islander.
when this was going on, we're like, I don't think people heard. Did anyone just pay attention to what he just said? Yeah, he's at rookie camp because like they needed a goalie, and they're doing him a favor by letting him be around a training camp in case someone has around the league has goalie injuries or whatever. And in another market, people would just be like, wow, RGM, like, man, just moral compass direct straight north. But with Lou, it's like, oh my God, he's bringing a 35-year-old to rookie camp. Like, that's mean.
What's
like,
he doing?
No. Yeah. And even though he's telling you to your face with a microphone in his hand, like, no, we're doing this guy a favor because he did us a favor. But it's just so, yeah, I wouldn't expect to hear much more of Keith Kincaid until like the goalie situation shakes out in terms of like who's going to be the tandem guy with Hogberg. Is it going to, it looks like it'll be Skarek and then, or Tikkanen. And then they'll say like, hey, to Kincaid, like you can more than welcome to hang around. And if we need a goalie in a pinch in Bridgeport, like you're our guy. But that's really it. It's just it was a non-story to begin. It was a fun story because of his Long Island roots, and that was part of it was cool. But then his actual impact was a non-story, and people just got carried away because there was nothing else going on, and everyone likes to get their rocks off by making fun of the Islanders and Lou Lamoriello.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that he was here, and I was hoping for more, especially considering, like you said,
Yeah.
Sorokin hasn't played at all this training camp, and you'd think he would have spent more time, being played, but I guess not. But the one thing I wanted to bring up was that blown lead against the Rangers, which again, like you said, was all on Henrik Tikkanen. So enjoy Worcester, my friend, because that's where you. If I was them, I would send both him and Skarek to Worcester. Sign Kincaid, let him and Hogberg play in Bridgeport. Maybe end up having a playoff season. But for all I know, Kincaid might be hurt or stinks or whatever. But Tikkanen was in net for all those goals. Maybe they weren't all on him, but when you give up 6 goals in a period and your team loses 6-4 after having a 4-1 lead, it's a bad look. And I just, he did not look all that well. My issue with this was 2 things. One, people being like, well, it's the preseason. You can't get too mad about a blown lead. It's different. No, I'm pretty sure I can get mad about it. Like, I'm allowed to get mad about it because when you've watched 2 years worth of blown leads, I don't care when they happen, they still suck. And I don't like seeing it. And this is the thing that has driven me completely crazy, drove me completely over the edge last year. And, it happened the year before too. And I didn't like it. And I know the circumstances are different again. It's a, ECHL basically level goalie in there, but I still don't like seeing it. A little bit of pushback would have been nice, but what are you going to do? So I'm okay with getting mad about it, although it didn't last that long. My other problem is being on Twitter. I guess maybe I'm like the old man in the club now, to quote Chris Rock and a great bit he had. I'm like the old man there because as soon as this happened, I must have seen a dozen tweets saying, we're so back. Oh, we're so back. Oh, it's great to be so back. And after the game was over, I tweeted, I don't want to be so back. I want to move on. And it's like, you're talking about people making the same jokes about, a 35-year-old guy being in rookie camp. This, oh, we're so back is just the most fucking nakedly cynical bullshit South Park, oh, nothing matters, kind of take on anything. And I hate it. I hate it. Whether it's about the Islanders or anything. Oh, we're so back. Well, good for you. What does that fucking mean? Like, I'm supposed to be like, I don't want to be back. I want to move on. I don't want to be back. I don't get it. And just your bullshit TikTok cynicism isn't really doing me any good. So again, that's my old man rant. And then they get shut out I wasn't nearly as mad that they got shut out by the Flyers the next night because again, they played well. It just, Sam Ersson was on one. So, hey, what are you going to do, man? And Hogberg played well too. So that's my big takeaway from these. The game against the Devils was a complete one. So, I mean, it's fine. Again, it's the preseason, but just the phrase, oh, we're so back just makes me so mad. It's like watching TikTok dances. They make me so mad that it's me. As soon as I see somebody set up a cell phone and look into it and go, and then just start dancing, I get so irrationally angry that this is what is considered entertaining by so many people now and edgy and funny that I just I want to be removed from the planet. Please literally send me anywhere that's not right here. You know what I mean? So that's just me. Sorry, rant over.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I'm happy that we didn't kick off the episode with, we're so back.
No.
In a weird way, I was happy they just blew that lead because it was almost like as I was kind of alluding to before, it does feel like everyone kind of just gets brainwashed over the summer and forgets how hockey seasons work. So this was a good reminder, yeah, guys, remember, you did have this problem. It was nice that these guys then had to go to the locker room and be like, shit, we're going to be asked about, is that a concern that we blew this lead after what happened last year, which it was good. That was good, at least, in terms of a big picture view. But this is hypocritical because we're on Twitter all day and
I know,
looking at hockey Twitter all day, especially. But it's insufferable most of the time. I can't the amount of people who just took a picture of an empty ice sheet. Who aren't not, and I'm not even talking about fans. That's one thing. It's totally okay if you're a fan and you're excited or you want to handle your fandom one way or another. But the amount of hockey people who have been working in hockey media for 30 years who are we're so back. God, just
I hope
just
back.
tell me who
is
every yes, yeah. And is everybody there that's supposed to be there? Yes or no? Please just give us the important bits that we're all looking for here. Yes, everyone's there. Great. Okay, I can move on with my day. I don't need to see grainy pictures of guys doing stick handling drills in the corner.
Yeah.
Which is just it's reached an all-time high. I think, and we talk about this every preseason about these videos. The only people who I would give passes to are people at San Jose Sharks camp on day one, people at the Flyers camp on day one, people who are at. That's really it, right?
Or maybe like little kids who like, it's a school field trip to Islanders
Right.
practice.
Yes.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah,
it's
or
like,
little kids.
it's like, wow, these guys are like doing drills in the corner,
Yes,
spinning
yes.
around like that. For a little kid, that's really cool. But like, that doesn't do me any good. Like, what am
Right.
I supposed to do with this information?
Yeah.
So, yes.
It's so especially if it's guys who've been like, I don't need to
Yeah.
see Alex Romanov doing it.
Right.
I
Exactly.
don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just the Islanders
No,
who
of
do
course
it,
not,
right?
yeah.
It's all over. The amount of pictures that I've seen of Maple Leafs players just like
Oh my
in,
God.
not even
Yeah.
on the ice, like walking around the rink. And someone's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, there's Mitch Marner's here for the first day." Austin, the big thing was this was a new one for me. It seems like every year there's like a new step towards absolute like inanity that happens, and this one was Austin Matthews when he led his first stretch as a
Yes.
as a captain. Like 7 or 8 people documented this picture as if it was going to be,
Right.
going into a history textbook somewhere.
Exactly.
which
Yeah. I was just going to say that. Yeah.
It's
right.
crazy.
I
Like
just don't really
he's
get it.
leading his first stretch as captain. I mean, this is Austin Matthews' 9th year in the NHL or whatever it's going to be, and he's been on the same team for a long time. I'm sure there's a lot of pictures of Austin Matthews leading stretches, but now he's leading one as captain, so it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But I mean, who's the loser here, right? I looked at all the stuff.
I know,
was
yeah,
like
exactly.
zooming in on all. I was zooming in on all the. I was like, let's see. I'm trying to see on if the guy that we drafted before Victor Hedman's face is like, if he's like glaring over, be like, oh man, that should be me leading this stretch. So I am the loser here, but I'm not the only one.
It's like they're all trying to fill a Hall of Fame wing that hasn't been filled yet. So it's like, oh, Austin Matthews, born, Arizona, whatever, and then moving on. It's like, here's his first stretch as captain. Like, oh.
And then when the first person does it, why did
Everybody
more
does
people have to do it? Like I was like, no man,
theirs is better.
Pictures. Oh yeah,
yeah. Theirs is the better
but
one.
yeah. So if for all those folks who are listening who do that, that we could tone it down. We're going into the second week of preseason. I don't need to see a 2-on-1 drill with Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri, with whom we know very well, to steal a phrase from Mike Francesa. Like,
yeah, I think we've seen that before.
Yeah,
in real games, not in practice.
Yeah,
but anyway,
not against Dennis Cholowski.
No. Well, that's a perfect segue. Speaking of guys like Dennis Cholowski and important information. So the Islanders did make some cuts today, and none of them are all that surprising. Most of these guys were ticketed for Bridgeport anyway. Andrew Gross has the tweet up here. Who they've sent down was Tikkanen, Fulp, George, Mitchell, Odelius, Warren, Dufour, Gatcombe, Jeffries, Lucas, Maggio, and Cam Thiesing. Again,
Can I stop you right there?
Sure.
You said Fulp, right?
Yes.
Wasn't he the guy that was like, everyone's like talking about his skating and his like endurance every day? Like, it's I guess it's great, good for the guy to get the shine, but he's going to Bridgeport. Like, I don't think we need to keep talking about how like this guy's got a motor on him. Like, great for the Sound Tigers, but
he's really impressed this year. And actually, the opposite of that was Alex Jeffries, who people were like, I don't know, he doesn't look all that good this year. Both of these guys were ending up in the same spot. Like, there wasn't like a scenario in which these guys beat out JG Pajot for the third string, the third line center position or whatever.
I think it was Elliot Freeman made actually a very astute observation that I appreciated on 32 Thoughts, which we should talk about at some point in this episode or next. But he was like, these guys aren't going home in the summer and like working at furniture stores anymore. Right. This isn't 1978 where you have to work another job because the hockey season ends in May, and you're like, shit, like hopefully I make the Red Wings again, but I don't know if I will, so I gotta get in with the local furniture store. Like these guys, we know like who's for the most part going to make the team, and it does. Even if Alex Jeffries came and scored a hat trick 3 out of the 4 preseason games he played, he was going to Bridgeport. Like, he's just going to Bridgeport. We just got to pass the time here. Tell us everyone's okay, and move on. Because guess what, Alex, you want to know when it's going to matter if Alex Jeffries looks good? In a couple weeks, when he's playing 3 games in a weekend in Bridgeport, and can he handle that like a full season? It is his first pro. It's like his first pro season. He played 6 games last year. Yeah, it's just like, it's okay if this guy shows up, doesn't light it up at camp. And once again, I do think that this is a ripple effect from what's going on what happens up north, because like Easton Cowan not having a brilliant training camp
Right.
has brought the country to a standstill.
I mean, we went to his family farm and talked to him and his parents. Freege, like we gotta, of course he's got to have a great camp. But no, you're right. I mean, it's just way too granular, and none of those guys going back to Bridgeport is all that surprising at all. We do have guys that are still here though, because there's still 2 weeks left. That includes Siplikov, who we mentioned before, who's really not a prospect. We'll talk about him in a minute. Gauthier, Frederick Karlstrom, who scored a nice goal against the Devils as well. Liam Foudy, again, Oliver Wahlstrom, and Dennis Cholowski, Grant Hutton, and Sam Bolduc, who again is played okay so far this preseason. He was really good in the first couple of periods of that game against the Rangers, I thought, and then fell apart afterwards. So right now the lineup, and this comes from Stefan Rosner, his new newsletter, basically looks like, again, nothing here is surprising. Duclair, Horvat, Barzell, and then Siplikov, Nelson, Palmieri was on the second line today in practice. Lee, Pajot, Holstrom, and then right now the fourth line was McLean, Cizikas, and Gauthier, which leaves Engvall, Martin, Karlstrom, Foudy, and Wahlstrom as the extras. Bolduc was the extra defenseman. Cholowski, Hutton was sort of like the fourth pairing, basically. Again, these guys are going to Bridgeport. It's not really a shock. Maybe one of them hangs around, but chances are they're all three of them are going to go back. Maybe they'll keep one of them. And again, with the forwards, just about all of them are going to go back. The only 2 that are really intriguing, and we kind of mentioned them before, Siplikov, Holmstrom, and Engvall and Martin. I should say the 4 of them that are really intriguing there. And I guess Wahlstrom, I have 5. Never mind. So Siplikov is an interesting case. He came over. He's an older guy. Obviously came over from Russia. There was a bit of a bidding war for him. The Islanders won it. And the rush to slot this guy into a spot has really been something this preseason. I never saw him as anything but a second liner. This guy, I don't see, and that's just sort of like really kind of, as Garth Snow would say, it's the numbers game. Like, where else is he going to go? I don't, people had him on the fourth line, and I'm like, they didn't drag this brother all the way from Moscow and sign him to this contract and like woo him here to play him next to, Casey Cizikas and Kyle McLean. Guys that are really, really good. Don't get me wrong, but like they play a role that I don't think they wanted Siplikov to play, right? Like I'm not crazy thinking this. They didn't bring this guy over here. Maybe third line if he found some chemistry with Pajot, but I think playing him with Nelson and Palmieri is probably the smartest thing, and really did not require all of the hemming and hawing and intrigue that we've seen this preseason. I don't know. Seems fine to me. I don't know. I guess really nothing else to talk about, but like, what do you think?
I'm with you. I was, when Holmstrom was up there, I was like, okay, like we'll just see how it ends up, because it almost makes a little bit of sense in, hey, this guy is new. Let's like just show him what it's like to play next to 2 guys like Kyle McLean and Casey Cizikas, because there's more of that in the NHL. There's like more of this style of player. Who knows? Whatever it was, like there's a method to the madness, but it was pretty clear from the beginning of this entire experiment, which was started in May, that where this guy was going to end up. Like the Islanders had a rotating cast of characters next to the Barzell and Horvat line, and also the Palmieri Nelson line. And when they signed Duclair, it was like, okay, one of those holes is filled. The other one looks like it would, the guy that they, as you said, dragged this guy from Moscow to let him take this spot. And he's, by all accounts, been as advertised, and has kind of deserved to be put there, or shown no reason not to to end that experiment and be like, oh shit, like now what are we going to do with this guy? And I will say, as jaded and as cynical as I've sounded, and I do apologize if that's been off-putting, but this would be, to me, like the one reason I would tune in to watch the preseason, be to watch this guy, just because got no idea what he's like and whatever. And it does seem like, by all accounts, he's been pretty good. That one play he made where he passed the puck to Julien Gauthier for a goal was pretty nifty. A tidy piece of business by Siplikov there. And so, yeah, I mean, that's like would be the one reason to tune in. And I would also say he's the kind of player and the kind of story that if he wasn't on the Islanders, I think he would be getting a lot more attention. Like, here comes this 31 goal scorer from the KHL.
100%. Oh, yeah.
Like Kuzmenko was a couple
Right.
years ago, or when we see like Gusev, remember the Nikita Gusev
Yeah.
watch?
Oh, sure.
All that stuff, and they end up being like bigger talking points because in the preseason you're looking for anything interesting to talk about, especially when you're covering an entire league. But I when Siplikov, there was this intrigue around him. It was almost a poor man's version of the Bo Horvat trade, right? There's like, oh man, like there's all these teams circling around Siplikov. Like it's really exciting. He's the most sought after KHL prospect. Oh, the Islanders signed him. All right, well, that's the end of that. Like we don't need to keep covering this guy. But if I remember correctly, the Canadians and the Maple Leafs were both after him.
Yeah.
And if this guy ended up in either one of those markets, or even like a market in between, like a Minnesota Wild, Mike Russo would be, staking out any Russian restaurants in the Minneapolis, in the Twin City area, and just like trying to talk to the staff there about him and like what they're cooking him, and does he miss his mom's cooking, like in that kind of stuff. But he's here, so it's doesn't get as much coverage outside of the main beat, but does seem like the early, for a guy like that, training camp, I guess, and preseason does matter. And I think it's been a long time since the Islanders have had a player like this where you are actually, it does matter like how he shows, I guess, and looks like he's passing the test, I would say. So that's exciting. And I think his jersey number, like seeing Siplikov 7, I'd always with Russian players with kind of long, cool names like that, you'd expect him to have like a cooler number, I shouldn't say a cooler number, a more like just funky number, like 73 or something. But just seeing like Siplikov at 7, it's kind of jarring to see that long name as like pronounced like that, and then just like slap the number 7 on there. But yeah.
Or it sounds like an old like 70s like political thriller, the Siplikov 7, you know, Robert Shaw in the Siplikov 7, something like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think, I would say that he's passing the test. He certainly hasn't failed it. Let's put it that way. He certainly hasn't come in and like overweight and like, has no chemistry and is throwing shit, wide, and is looking lost out there. That hasn't happened at all. But I mean, this dude's coming over from Russia. He doesn't know anybody. He's already 26 years old. He's played, a number of seasons in the KHL. I think there's going to be an adjustment period, and he's the kind of guy that like maybe the preseason is a little bit for. He's played, I think in every game. If not, maybe he's just missed the one. And I think it's all working out. I mean, and listen, Nelson and Palmieri are 2 pros too, so maybe there is something to what you're saying. Like they're kind of easing him in before getting with 2 guys who we know have chemistry, who play really, really well. Speaking of chemistry, where does that leave Simon Holmstrom? Well, he's right currently and is in Rosner's, telling here. He's lined up next to Pajot, another guy he's shown some chemistry with. And I feel like Holmstrom is taking a bit of abuse this preseason. I don't know why. And he's a perfect example of like progression is not linear. Like this dude for half a season last year was terrific. I mean, he led the NHL in shorthanded goals for like half the season, right? Like he looked great, and they were like a machine on the penalty kill, which obviously was the Islanders' real kryptonite last year. And I thought he played really well. Did he slow down towards the end of the season? Yeah, I think so. But I mean, he's still like 21 years old, isn't he? He's super young, maybe 22. And so I think that I don't know what people are looking for. They're expecting Pavel Datsyuk or something like that, or Patrice Bergeron out of this guy. I don't know. This guy still has a lot of runway to go, and I'm fine seeing him next to Pajot. I think he's a good player. He's a defensively responsible young player. That's pretty rare, who can score a little bit and has instincts on the PK. Again, their PK was terrible, but I thought he was sort of okay of all those bad elements. So I think that's all right.
It's also a compliment that he's played on the second and the third line. I think he can also play on the fourth line. Like, and hell, like he played on the first line. And like, I think that's it's like a good thing more than anything. That he bounces around, because you need a player like that. You need someone who can play up and down the lineup, and he scored 15 goals last year. Like he's just a good NHL player, I think. Yeah,
I think so too. And the Skates of the Stakes guys kind of made the connection with him and Josh Bailey, which I can kind of see a little bit. And with Bailey, we talked about it ad nauseum. Like for his first 10 years in the league, he was just bounced all around the lineup, and like that's bad. Like I don't think that helped Josh at all. But if they can tone that down a little bit and take Holmstrom and use that versatility in different parts of the lineup, I do think that there is some value to that, obviously. But you don't want to see the poor guy get confused, which I think poor Josh was for a little while. But that leaves the fourth line spot. Kyle McLean is an Islander now. Like, I don't know if there's really any going back for him. He's looked terrific this preseason. He looked great in the playoffs, which very few Islanders did. He makes sense lined up next to Cizikas. Yes, he's a center, but they like having two centers there. It's fine. Color me, I should say, maybe unimpressed or unconvinced that Julien Cotier is going to win a spot on the fourth line of this team coming out of camp. I just don't see it happen. Oliver Wahlstrom, we just talked about, I don't know what they're going to do with this guy, because if the lineup shakes out the way it is, there's just no spot for him. I don't see him as a fourth liner either. What does that mean for Matt Martin? Well, I don't know. I mean, he's definitely going to be on the shadow team. I think, he'll probably be signed or just hang around the PTO for a while. But then what does that mean for Pierre Engvall? Like, Karlstrom and Foudy go back to Bridgeport, but like, does that mean Pierre Engvall, who is, in year 2 of a 7-year contract, is going to be a fourth liner? I guess it's not that bad, but at some point I think we're going to need to have a conversation about Pierre Engvall and his future with this team. Not right now, still a couple of weeks to go before the season starts. And obviously early season is also kind of an experimental time, but if I'm Pierre Engvall, really Engvall and Wahlstrom are the two guys who are probably sweating it the most right now. Like, I really do think that they are, because I just don't know what their place is on this team. One guy they can put on waivers, maybe he gets picked up and maybe he doesn't. The other guy they can put on waivers, he ain't going anywhere. But now you've got a guy on a 7-year contract playing in the AHL. Like, that's a bad look. That's an infinitely worse look than bringing in a 35-year-old and having him play in rookie camp because he helped you out there in the summer and he's from the area. Like, that's a bad look, and the Islanders would deserve a lot of ribbing for that. So, where are you on this sort of Bermuda Triangle of guys? Gauthier, Engvall, and Wahlstrom. 3 guys vying for one spot that I don't know really if any of them are kind of built for it.
Yeah, and I think you could throw Fashing in there too.
Oh, yeah, I completely forgot about it. Well, he's a little hurt right now.
He's hurt, right, yeah. So, but I think those 3 guys, to me, Engvall's spot, he's like, it's almost weird, because I think Pierre Engvall's most impactful season will likely come when the Islanders start to, like, move on from Anders Lee and Pajot. Like, I think they need a spot for Lee, and Lee's in the spot where I would assume Engvall would be if Lee wasn't there. But once again, I depending on where you have it, I think his game is second or third line, like a okay second line winger or a good third line winger. And right now, if he's getting beat out by Simon Holmstrom, that is what it is, and he's got to find another spot. And the emergence of Kyle McLean has thrown another wrench into the system, because man, what if this guy's just like really good and like not? if I try my best not to get carried away, but he was so good at the end of last year that I would be like, all right, like he's having a nice little spurt here. But if he carries that into this season, and all of a sudden you're like, damn, this guy's actually like good, like 20 goal scorer good. That'd be hilarious. And
well, that's sort of like what we thought Engvall was going to be. Like, he came on to the trade deadline, was really good and was good into the playoffs, and then they signed him to that crazy contract, and he was sort of just kind of barely there last year. He had some moments, but I mean, went a long time without scoring a goal, and we all want, if McLean worked out that way, it would be great, but it would also be like, maybe we pulled the trigger on this kind of contract too early for the wrong guy.
I think it's probably true that we did. He was the other funny thing about Engvall was he was really good down the stretch last year. Like, he scored that really big goal against the Canadians in a game that the Islanders needed to win. He had a goal against was that the Rangers where he scored? I think it was actually called back, but like, he was really good with Nelson and Palmieri that night. But we heard all this talk about before training camps open, like this is going to be the most competitive Leafs camp in years. And it turned out that like the only people competing first, it wasn't. It was like actually the opposite, because of the Max Pacioretty thing. Like, oh, it's not even competitive. He's got a contract. He's on a PTO, but he's still got a contract. So this training camp seems like a waste of time for most of these people. But for the Islanders, I think it's a good thing that they have Engvall, Holmstrom, and McLean lead like sort of in competing for the same minutes here, where the third player on a second, third, or fourth line, and Siplikov actually in there too. Like these guys you have to be good. So it's not it's embarrassing, but it's not the worst thing in the world to have some depth here and some good depth where it's like, oh, Holmstrom's hurt or Holmstrom's not playing well. Pierre Engvall can come in and he's an good NHL player, or and I know like they play off on like there's like shooting hand situations with like Fashing. He shoots right, the other guys shoot left, but like another one, like the at least the depth here is serviceable rather than shit, we gotta like go down and get William Dufour to come up and he's like way not even close to ready. Like it wasn't the choices were a lot tougher or a lot less inspiring for that like 13th 14th forward than they are now. So but yeah, you are right though, like he's another uninspiring season from Engvall would not be fun. I would not be thrilled with that at all.
No, and you could definitely miss me with the wow. Julian Gauthier having a great preseason.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention him, and that tells you what I thought about. Like, yeah. What do you think? 6.5 games over under than Julian Gauthier?
Right.
I think I would still probably take the under. Honestly.
Yeah. Right.
Because I it sounds like they're more interested in Foudy, and if Wahlstrom goes down to Bridgeport, he passes through waivers. Probably be Wahlstrom before Gauthier.
Yeah.
Bashing. Engvall, Holmstrom.
It's a song we've heard before. Like we've heard, and not just us. This is a song that's been playing around the NHL for 10 years now.
Yes,
like,
exactly. And if Julian Gauthier is playing like 50 games for the Islanders this season, it's probably not a good thing. It probably means there's been a bunch of injuries to good players.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, maybe they rotate, like you said. I hadn't really thought about that, but you can rotate Holmstrom, Engvall, and Wahlstrom at some point, but I don't know if that's really great for any of those guys, and nobody's going to really be happy about that. It's sort of like carrying 3 goalies, which again you mentioned on 32 Thoughts. I think it was the Canadians were carrying 3 goalies, and they're like, they found out it didn't really work out well for them. It's like, dude, I knew that 10 years ago when JF Berube was friggin' on the Islanders, the third goalie. It didn't work out then either. But again, nobody learns anything in this league, which is kind of funny. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but cut day is around the corner. Everybody, is going to put everybody on waivers, trying to sneak guys through, and some of these guys are going to end up there, and people are going to sweat it. Oh my God, what are they going to do when they lose them? And maybe they will, but most likely they won't, because everybody else is putting dudes on waivers because they got to get down to 25 contracts or whatever it is too. So it's going to be an interesting one. But if I was one of these guys, I would be really worried. Martin Was said he doesn't have to prove anything to him. I don't know if if they end up signing him to a contract and he ends up playing over any of these guys, maybe they should look for a new line of work. And I mean that with all the love in the world for Matt Martin. I mean, we all love Matt Martin, right? But like, bro, like you can't,
that's the funniest thing. Yeah. Like you're not going to beat Matt Martin out for a spot, and that's what's concerning here. It's like
I know we all love him, and he's a great guy, and he's a great teammate, and everybody, I'm sure. But like, this is a man you got to beat for a job. Like this,
and he fits, and he plays a much different role than what you'd be asking for, from Wahlstrom and Gauthier and whatever. But still, like the team is looking for an excuse to keep you over him, and we're not getting there. It's so concerning. And then and then one thing too is, what are the chances he doesn't clear waivers at this point too? And people are like, oh, we're gonna lose him for nothing.
Who Wahlstrom?
Yeah, Wahlstrom. I should say.
That's the thing. I'm not buying that either. Same with Bolduc. Same thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you want to like point to a teams like Columbus or San Jose or whatever, but they have guys who have been in camp with them.
Yeah.
Like that they're deciding to choose between. I don't think that they'd want to be like, oh, should we give ourselves another headache by trying to fix Oliver Wahlstrom? Like, I think the odds are pretty good that he passes through waivers. And the Islanders know that.
Yeah, it goes back to maybe the one prescient thing that Kevin Kerr said when he was covering the Islanders, which is when Anthony Beauvillier was around and they were trying to trade him, and it's like every team has a guy like this, a guy
Right.
who's a young guy, 20 goal potential, but just goes through these crazy slumps and disappears for a long time and isn't particularly good at all these other things. Like, why would they take the Islanders guy? I can't imagine there's scouts from San Jose or Chicago or Utah like sitting on Islanders games being like, oh man, when Oliver Wahlstrom is put on
Have you
waivers,
heard
we got
about
to
this
grab him right
Wahlstrom
away.
guy?
Yeah. I don't think that's happening. So, I mean, the possibility exists. Listen, Ross Johnston got picked up on waivers. So again,
Yes.
not something we expected. So we don't know really anything, but I'm just saying we've heard this story so many times I can't buy it. Real quick on the defense, and then we'll take a break and talk about Sorokin on the other side. So far, it's, again, no surprises. Romanov Dobson, Pelech Pulick, who Ryan Pulick was talking about how he and Adam Pelech had talked about getting their swagger back.
Dude.
And I thought Jack Capuano was back on the staff.
What am I missing about Ryan Pulock, dude? You guys just had you took the most insane wedding I've ever seen in my life. I don't think you need any swagger, buddy. I think we're okay. I think you're okay in the swagger department.
Yeah.
It looked like you shut down the city of
Italy.
Yeah, like Venice. Venice has been around. The
Right.
Medicis didn't even get into your wedding, dude. Like, what is going on? Like, swagger. I think you're okay.
He left all his swagger in Italy. But that's pretty fun. And then Riley Mayfield. Riley was hurt a little bit, so now he's coming back. Mayfield was hurt half of the season, so they got to find their chemistry again. But
and Mayfield, Mayfield hurt Philip Heedle for a little bit, then fought Ryan Lindgren.
Oh, right.
Which I meant when we were going through the preseason games, like another situation where if it wasn't the Islanders, like two blood rivals fighting, two defensemen, two blood rival teams playing in a preseason game, a defenseman hurts another defenseman in a fight after a hit, and if it was Ottawa versus Toronto or Montreal versus Toronto, the Battle of Ontario is back. Like, God, give me 7 games of this, but it's like Mayfield and Lindgren. I didn't even hear a mention of it. Like, and Lindgren is a pretty important player for the Rangers, so really just shows you, man. It just it's, anyways.
No, we're going to be hearing about this Czech guy Line A, Cedric Paré thing for years now. So you're 100% right. But yeah, so Riley Mayfield will be the third pair. Again, I think they'll swagger back as much as it existed last year. And then that leaves Chalowski, Hutton, and Bolduc. Chalowski and Hutton were a pair today. Bolduc was the extra. Again, those dudes are going back to Bridgeport. Like, maybe one of them sticks around and plays the the extra defenseman role. Bolduc did that already. And to be blunt, I'd rather see him go back to Bridgeport. I know they're afraid of losing him on waivers, but come on, man. Like, every team has this defenseman that they think is going to be pretty good. And honestly, he looked okay again for parts of this preseason. So I wouldn't mind keeping him around. But this defense was set before the season. It's set now. These guys are going to hang around for the last couple of preseason games here and then get sent back. But Hutton, I mean, this guy might be the set a record for like the longest member of the Islanders organization without ever really barely playing for the Islanders. So
I don't want to see Grant Hutton play like more than 4 games for the Islanders this season, but boy, do I love the guy. Like, exactly. And soccer, you always hear like, oh, a servant to the club. Like, this guy he's Islander through and through, baby. Like, keep Grant Hutton around for as long as you can. He's been in Bridgeport since 2008, or in the organization since 2018, I think, and just seems to be the type of guy that is thrilled with that role, right? Like, I'll be the 9th defenseman, and if I'm playing really well in Bridgeport, maybe I force your hand and I get called up a little before that.
Yeah.
But love this guy.
Yeah, really. Seriously, playoff Black Ace. This guy would be a huge star if they still did the Adventureland autograph sessions.
Oh my God,
talk about
star.
all the time on Weird Islanders.
and if he was a Leaf, Josh Cloak would be on his roof in Carmel, Indiana, or on his uncle's roof. His uncle owns a pork store in Carmel, Indiana, and I'm here staking it out, confusing the hell out of the man.
Yeah, right. No, definitely, he'd be a folk hero. So, okay, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back. We'll talk about the goalies on the other side. We'll throw in a couple other things as well in this episode. All right, so meet us on the other side. Thanks. And now, a word from our sponsors. First is always VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is VintageIceHockey.com.
Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly.
Think you know the Brooks Ghost? Think again. Introducing the all-new, better-than-ever Ghost 16. Now with nitrogen-infused cushioning for lightweight, supreme softness that feels good every step, every street, every single day. So go ahead, take your daily joyride in the all-new nitrogen-infused Ghost 16. It'll turn your everyday miles into everyday endorphins. Let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
Jewelry isn't a gift you give just once. It's a way to remind your loved one of a beautiful moment every time they see it. Blue Nile can help you find the gift that says how you feel and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com to find the perfect jewelry gift for any occasion. BlueNile.com.
How to have fun, anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
So we talked forwards in the preseason. We talked defense in the preseason. Now we got to talk about the goalies. And the only thing that really needs to be talked about is that Ilya Sorokin still isn't here. And this was basically the situation that we joked about, sort of half feared about, which is that Lou Lamoriello comes out and says, oh, he's okay. He's he had surgery earlier in the offseason. He's going to be fine. And he's only going to miss the first few days of training camp. Well, guess what? Training camp is almost over. They only have 2 preseason games left, and the season starts a week from Thursday. So Ilya Sorokin still hasn't been heard from. He has been skating, according to Wah. He doesn't have any more updates to give us or anything like that. This is a man starting a new 8-year contract that's worth a lot of money. If he comes back and it finds his Vezina form again, the Islanders are a totally different team. And if he doesn't, and he's only mediocre, which he kind of was last year for the most part, they might sneak into the playoffs, maybe not. They're going to rely on 30-whatever-year-old Semyon Varlamov, who took today off, maintenance day. Hopefully he's okay and he's just taking an extra day off. This is really the kind of biggest area of concern. We talked about some, roster spots that might be open, but right now, a lot of this season hinges upon Ilya Sorokin's health. No shock there. And Lou is once again playing his games. We love Lou. We've talked about Lou and all the good things he's done for the Islanders for the last few years, but this is easily my least favorite Lou-ism. He's only going to be out for a couple of games in the preseason, and then all of a sudden, or a couple of days of training camp, and all of a sudden, how long into the season do we go before he hasn't played at all? And I mean, we did this with Kyle Palmieri. We did this with who else? A couple of years, Varlamov, I think, already a couple of years ago. So I hate this. Love Lou. Yeah. He's done great things, but man, I friggin' hate this.
Yep.
So yeah, where are you at now with Sorokin?
No, I'm with you 100%. It's you take Lou at his word because he's got this weird magical power,
right,
of telling the truth while lying.
Saying nothing while still talking. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I took and he might maybe Sorokin comes back and he's like, yeah, few days of training camp. That was a few. What how do you look at a few? But you're always going to be concerned in this situation. The one thing I will say is I'd much rather them take their time with Sorokin and make sure he's coming back to be 100% healthy than put him in so he can play behind.
Make fans feel better.
Yeah, exactly. And get a first row seat to Aiden Fulp's bag skate prowess. He doesn't need to see Aiden Fulp skate laps. I think we don't even need to see that. I think we'll be okay. So yeah, that's like the angel and devils on the shoulder situation. Like the angels being like, you don't want them to rush it, the
Right.
Devil saying, where the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
Is the other situation. And what what else is hilarious to me? It kind of tells you about how the Islanders operate and their cone of silence and the way they protect themselves internally, which I have nothing but respect for overall. But yeah, we're getting these footage of you know, Max Siplikov and Anders Lee playing 2-touch football or something in warm-ups before practice, but we haven't even. There's like, yeah, he's skating on his own. Like nobody's able to get a glimpse of Sorokin skating on his own, which you would assume means he's at the Eisenhower practice rinks where they play at. Like the two rinks, one rink is next to the other. You'd assume that he'd be like over there working on drills with maybe like a goalie coach or a skating coach, but we haven't even seen that. So I do hope skating on his own means like he actually is skating on his own and not, something else. But yeah, it's worrying above all else. That's, I think, the Hogberg game was at least encouraging. But the Islanders looks like they're going to need Semyon Varlamov is going to be like the most important player for the Islanders coming out of the break. It seems like so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you said, definitely my least favorite part of the Lou Lamoriello shtick here as a fan.
Yeah, and I mean, my other thing too is like, assuming they are just taking their time and he is healthy and or is on his way back. Like, I'm afraid of missing camp. Like, again, this guy's been in the league for a number of years. He obviously had plenty of practice over in the KHL as well. I don't know if he necessarily needs training camp, but just I don't know. I hate when guys miss camp. Again, it really messed with Palmieri a couple of years ago, and last year he was great. He had his best year as an Islander, but at that time I was just like, I don't know with this. He missed a few days of camp. You wouldn't think that a guy who'd been in the league for 10 years already would really need camp, but it does help. It does get them in shape. And so, missing out on these bag skates that Waz been putting them through, I don't know if that's going to have an adverse effect, but I just hate the subterfuge and this. And again, Lou has done so many good things for this team and to put them where they are, but man, this kind of stuff, I accept it during the playoffs, when it's like, oh, we don't want to say that our guy has, a knee injury, because then everybody's going to be attacking him at the knees or the hips or the shoulders or whatever. And I kind of understand that in a vacuum, but dude, it's the preseason. Like, just tell us what's wrong with the guy. Tell us when he's coming back. You don't need to be this shady. Like, it's okay,
Yeah.
and this way we're prepared for it and we're ready, and we're not like already antsy about this and angry about this.
Yeah. And it's also, we're trying to get excited for the season and buy tickets and
right.
What are my expectations for the year? All that kind of stuff. Like, you're trying,
right.
and he's proven, time and again, he just doesn't give a shit. And I have nothing but respect for that. Like, look, if you're going to do all the other parts of Lou's shtick, like, you also have to do this one. And we just got to kind of grit and, bear, just grit our teeth through it and get through it. But, as a fan, it would make me feel better to know, my level of concern. That's like, we're not looking at like game one here against the Penguins in the playoffs, right, where they're trying to figure out, are they going to start Varlamov or Sorokin really hurt? Like, by all means, you lock those two guys up in where, in the big duck, you clock the keys, whatever you got to do to create a dungeon, and don't let the Penguins know a thing. But this is more about where I need to know how I feel going into the season. Like, do I think the Islanders have a chance to surprise people, or is this a 2011 situation? I don't. I need to know.
Yeah, that would be bad, especially this season. Like, we got a rejiggered first line that looks like it has potential to be real dynamite. You've got this import guy from Russia that looks like he's an intriguing dude and might, again, change the complexity of this team and give them an element that they hadn't really had before. You've got a fourth line that's going to be totally different for the first time in however many years. I think they said in the game against the Devils, Brendan was like, the last time the Islanders had a training camp without, or played a preseason game without Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck in the lineup, was 2007. Like, that's insane. It's just like, so I don't know if people are happy about it, but they're excited to see, this sort of new landscape. Yes. And meanwhile, we're all sitting around being like, what's the deal with Sorokin now? Is he going to be okay? So not the best look, but all we can do is wait and see what happens. And again, they have a couple weeks and two more. If he shows up in that Rangers for that last preseason game against the Rangers, you'd be like,
the scariest one.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, hopefully they're.
Yeah, but I'm with you. Like, if he shows up in that, or even like get some practices in before then, I'm like, okay, this is
Okay, yeah,
fine.
this is fine. Yeah, right. So
But
he's still got a week to go, so we'll have to see. Okay, very quickly, we just want to touch on a couple of things that were kind of making the round. So Amazon is getting into the hockey business, not once but twice. They actually have two things available for Prime Video subscribers. One of them is only available in Canada, and it's Monday night, like Prime games. They tweeted out their lineup of talking heads, some folks, to call the game. John Forsland, I think, is going to be the main play-by-play voice. Andy Petrillo is going to host the intermission show, I think. What's his name? Adnan Virk, the guy who worked at WWE for a while, is going to be there. And one of them is Thomas Hickey. And people are like, oh, this is great for Hickey. I can't wait to watch him. Well, unless you live in Canada, you ain't going to watch him. You're going to watch him on MSG broadcast. But it will be cool to see people get a look at how great he is and how we all knew that he was going to be that good. Sadly, Mark Messier is also involved, but at least that's one. At least that's one less time he'll be involved on my TV. So I guess it works out pretty well. But I thought that was kind of funny. The second thing, though, you will get to see if you live in the United States, and that is this behind the scenes show. It's like a 6-episode thing. I forget what it's called. I should have looked it up. But it's basically, going behind the scenes and looking at these players. They have some video from the Oilers and their run to the Cup final last year. They have some stuff with the Predators, and I guess Philip Forsberg is kind of taking the lead there. They have some David Pastrnak stuff from Boston. And because I know you're all waiting for this, believe it or not, they are taking you inside the Maple Leafs locker room to talk to William Nylander, the most important Leaf next to Austin Matthews. As soon as I saw the teams involved in this thing, I was like, yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Oh, there's some Ranger stuff in there. So I'm like, okay, so it's basically the same teams that we always hear from, plus the Predators. No, thanks. I'm good. I don't need to see talking head interviews with William Nylander because I don't give a shit what he has to say about anything. So I don't really care. And obviously the Canadian thing I can't watch unless you have a VPN, I suppose. But yeah, so I just thought this was kind of a funny thing, and I'm supposed to get excited about it. There's these breathless articles about, oh, isn't this great? People are going to really love the sport. They're going to fall in love with the players, and they got this permission to go behind the scenes. Isn't this wonderful? And I'm like, I don't care about this, and neither will anybody else probably watching Amazon. So you saw the same stuff I did. What are your feelings on this? Are you gonna? You're different than I am. You watch the Leafs behind the scenes stuff.
Oh yeah.
Plenty you of might times. Actually watch this many times.
Once this summer, because with us, I meant to. My problem is that I can't do anything technically because there's this great scene in that documentary where Austin Matthews, like they are in the death throes of choking away that 3-1 series lead to the Canadians, and as we've said about that one, which the funniest part about that series is that it was filmed and you could tell the beginning from the second that show started, the Maple Leafs were like, look, the viewpoint of this, the POV of this documentary is like the build up to the big win where we win the Stanley Cup. And it was edited that way. And then they kind of just like abruptly lose. And in the first round to the Canadians after being up 3-1. But the funniest part of the end of that is that there's like they're Game 7, they're down 2-0 to the Canadians and they're in the locker room. And it's shot once again, POV. This is these are the good guys. They come back and win, obviously. So they show like Jason Spezza and Morgan Riley giving like impassioned bellows of like, we gotta like be better, etc. Then Matthews goes, show some urgency out there, guys. Like it's just, I'm like, yeah, that's my captain, man. But yes, I think there's two different conversations here, right? There's the show itself, which maybe it'll be enjoyable, and I do see the appeal. People certainly like this kind of stuff. And by all means, go and enjoy it. If you do, I'll watch it mostly for the Schadenfreude, especially that first episode. I mean, who doesn't want to go behind the scenes for the Leafs when they lose Game 7 to the Bruins? Like that will be fun. So there's that part of it, which I get, like totally understand people being excited to watch it. Fans, once again, there's a huge distinction and a line of, delineation between fan and media member. Because the only people that are talking about it right now are objective reporters who only high five when the Leafs score, and they couldn't be more excited. Like, this is a level of access we just have never seen before. They all keep going down the party line, which I always find so funny because the NHL's not the only one to do this, but they're like, this is just like Formula One Drive to Survive. This is going to be the NHL's Drive to Survive moment.
Right.
That show I never watched it. I just don't really have any interest in motor racing, but
Me neither.
by all means, I think a lot of people really love the show and are into F1 now because of it, and it seemed like it was a home run. That show came out in 2019. This is like this is classic NHL. Like, oh, this. I always bring up like when the Islanders had Subway. They opened a Subway inside Nassau Coliseum, and they thought it was like this groundbreaking. They're playing. Welcome to the 23rd centuries where the New York Islanders play. Like, we're way ahead of the game. Like, no,
right.
Subway has been around forever. Like, this isn't all that exciting. It's just exciting relative to Nassau Coliseum experience when it was just chicken tenders that had been. I saw like our tweet from Bud Lightly Man, who was like, those things have been in a freezer since the 21-22.
Styrofoam pretzels were always my go-to. Yeah.
Sean Bates was playing.
And popcorn that was so salty, it was like it was being preserved. Like, they salt fish. That's what I think they did with the popcorn. They salted it so much so it wouldn't go bad.
I love the bags that they were served in too, because I was like, those bags are from the 80s. You guys bought like 8 million of these popcorn bags, and we're like, man, we still got the ones from when we first opened in 1972.
Right.
Right. But my point being that it's not the way it's being covered is this like groundbreaking spectacle,
right?
Like, it's just so nauseating, and it makes me less excited. Because I think that the hockey media just does such a poor job of representing the fan base, and because they think that they are acting like they're like the spokespeople for it,
right?
Like, you're Chris Johnston, man. Like, you get paid to go to NHL games. You don't know what it's like to decide, do I want to spend, $100 to go watch the Jets and the Wild tonight? Like, you don't understand that. Like, and you certainly don't understand what it's like to have the Toronto Maple Leafs granular, most uninspiring content like shoved down your throat,
right?
All year long, because you have to put up with that to get to like the actual bits of news, because it's hard to get it down here. Like, you don't understand that. So, and you certainly don't understand what it's like to have like, you certainly don't understand what like never before seen footage is like. You're in the locker rooms, you see all this stuff, you think like fans you won't believe what these guys are like behind closed doors. Brother, man, the Florida Everblades show videos from like their locker room after wins. Like, we see these guys. The Cincinnati, if I wanted to watch like a behind the scenes Cincinnati Cyclones ECHL, minute by minute documentary, I could probably find one on YouTube, because every team does this now. And they're like, well, those ones are sanitized. Like, they're sanitized. Like, the difference is so, it's so marginal. Like, I'm so yes, I'm gonna watch it, and I might like it, but the way it's covered is what kills me here. It's like that's the most annoying part of all this. It's really really not that big a deal. This isn't Martin Scorsese didn't just pop up and say,
right,
you guys, the NHL has had me on retainer for the last 20 years. And you and I, before the show, actually, to give some credit to a person who actually makes wonderful hockey content that I think everybody should go seek out. If you listen to the show, you will love Pinholes Graham on YouTube. This is a YouTube. I don't know who he is. We're trying to find out. Hopefully, get him on Weird Islanders. But this gentleman does these great deep dive documentaries on playoff series of series. I can't remember what he calls it. Series of playoffs past or something, and other documentaries as well. And they're so good. Like, they're not. He doesn't have an Amazon budget, obviously, but he hits all the talking points that you, as a hockey nerd, like. I like hearing about Patrick Eliash's like rookie year and how Devils fans viewed him, and this guy somehow gets to all this stuff. And he did one on the 2001-2002 Leafs Isles series. He's done some on the Ducks. He did one on the Ducks 2003 playoff run against when they played the Red Wings. He did against the Stars. Like, there was, it's so good. The Coyotes and Blackhawks series from about a decade ago.
Yeah.
That, I think, is the stuff that like I like. Like, I actually like getting into that, into the weeds in these like sports documentaries where like I don't need to see William Nylander in his fit. I don't care what kind of suit I don't care how laid back he is, that he rides the subway to the games. We see that stuff all the time already. So that it's not the never before seen that these media members think. I actually think it's quite the opposite. We know what this is going to look like. I could probably pencil out a storyboard for how these 6 episodes are going to look. But I will tell you one thing that I can guarantee: when the first episode drops, CJ and reporters of his ilk are going to be like, "What did I tell you? Was that not a treat, hockey fans?"
Well, CJ wrote a whole thing at The Athletic about how they got the players involved, and like the production company talked with them and like got them to open up and got them got them to agree to let these guys film them in these private moments. And like the private moments include Nylander getting coffee, I think, or something like that. And it's like all these other things. And like, they talk about like how he yelled at Marner or whatever on the bench and things like that. And obviously they're in the locker room with the Oilers again in the finals. And so I just, to me, it's like you talk about this all the time, that TV being produced for other producers with other producers in mind. And I feel like this isn't going to make new fans. This is for people like, Chris Johnston or Mark Lazarus or whoever, that for whom every morsel of NHL content is the greatest thing ever, are going to eat this up. And the rest of us are going to be like, I don't really, there's a new thing on Vince McMahon on Netflix right now. And it's like, people were excited about this. This was started filming before all the lawsuits against him were coming out and all that he has done, and he's been accused of being done. And it's awful. And it should, in most cases, be the focal point of a very interesting investigation. But instead, it's basically 6 episodes of stories that we already know about Vince, told by the people who we already have heard talk about Vince, who are never going to say anything bad about him. And then they kind of tack on the extra, the really, really bad stuff that just came out at the end. And it's just a very disappointing kind of thing. And I feel like, if it's not going to make people, it's not going to surprise anybody. People that don't know Vince McMahon probably aren't going to watch it. And the people that are going to watch it already know all this stuff. And so I feel like that might be kind of where this is headed.
Yes. But, I think that's the perfect way to put it. And there's something to be said that this stuff maybe has jumped the shark, and maybe it does look a little different, but as I said, like every team and the Islanders aren't involved, which is
of course not,
which is not, just who they are as an organization, which once again, like if we're going to take all the good, we got to take some of the bad. And sure, would I love to see, Robert Bortuzzo score that goal and whatever, and the celebration after? Absolutely. But it's just not going to happen with this team. But I do think like every team kind of does this now. We're getting 24/7 style documentaries on training camp, like cuts already, like John Tortorella going through the list of flyers that he's cutting, and which it's cool. But as you said, it's the people who are going to watch it already know all this stuff, and it's not going to bring in the grow the game crowd that everyone has been seeing. And one other thing I also think is, not that I watch any NFL on Sundays anymore, but seems like the early returns on this NFL season has been just terrible to watch, which it's been terrible to watch for a long time. And now it's just the masses are starting to make it a story. And all these leagues want to be like the NFL. They want to copy the NFL, which is, I would say, hey, maybe pump the brakes on that. The NFL product sucks. It's just a behemoth. One of my friends calls it the sixth wing of the American military. It's like you got the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, and the NFL. And that's how it's run. Like you're the NHL. You're very different from the NFL. We don't need to do everything the NFL does. Doesn't need to be, copied and such. And the other thing that keeps getting mentioned is that it's like it's just going to be just like the 24/7 HBO documentaries that everybody loved, which we did. And I still seek those out from time to time, especially that first season. It was a wonderful watch, but the huge difference between that coming out in 2010 or 11 and now this coming out in 2024, because there have literally been thousands of shows made like this in that time period. So, which once again, if it's something you like, it's great, but at the same, it doesn't need to be met with this kind of celebration as if it's like a massive moment in the history of sports.
Right.
that it's being treated as if
Yeah.
by certain members of the media.
And also, like, how many new fans did that show make? I mean,
Right.
a lot of people watching HBO were probably like, "Oh, come on, when is The Sopranos coming on?" Or when, oh, I thought there was a movie coming on, or
Yeah.
Game of Thrones is coming on now. Like, so,
True.
it could be cool. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to be excited about this, but so many things are just making me. So many things about the current NHL product, the current NHL landscape, the current NHL media landscape just make me not want to watch this, and it's pretty sad. So, we'll have to see. I mean, maybe I'll throw it on if it gets good reviews, but just looking at the 2-minute preview thing made me be like, yeah, I don't need to see this. Now, that being said, if they did do one on the Islanders, I'd be the first person to watch it. And I'll be honest with you before we end up here, like, I know the Islanders don't do this stuff, but like hiring Patrick Waugh would have been a fantastic episode of this show. Like the whole process, not so much, to like dance on Lady Lambert's grave or anything, but like the process of like, hey, we're looking to make a change of coach. The season's kind of, going off the rails a little bit here. Calling Patrick Waugh, bringing him in, have all these players be like, holy shit, Patrick Waugh's our coach now, and then go into, and then, 3 days later is the game in Montreal, which of course the Islanders lost. But like, the fact that they made the playoffs is kind of a bit of a happy ending. So like that right there would have been a perfect kind of episode and a different kind of thing. And, again, it would not have made new fans. I totally get that. But like, it would have been something new. It would have been a look at a team we don't get a big look at, making a monumental change that has reverberations all across the NHL. And, that's the kind of stuff we don't get. Instead, we get, William Nylander buying suits, going to get coffee. Like, we've seen this, right? Philip Forsberg on his mustache, Pasternak being Pasternak. Like, I'm sure they're going to do stuff on the Rangers, and like they're part of it, and how Bellion in the big city, and they're just like the Yankees. Yeah, okay, fine. Like, we've seen all this. Anyway, if you watch it, let us know if it's any good. We'll have to see. Okay, real quick, while we wrap this up. So this is our first official episode of this season. You see, it's episode 299, which means next week, our season quote unquote preview episode, I guess, or whatever, will be episode 300. I know it's crazy, but here we are. So that's pretty exciting. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. I think we didn't talk about this before. I meant to mention this, but I think we'll do some bold predictions next week, right? I mean, that's the week that they're playing. So I think it's time to get some of those in. So you do those better than I do, but get your brain kind of.
We do them. They never the super specific bold predictions that.
Yeah,
I think I said that Nick Leddy would come back to the Islanders. 2 seasons ago, but
yeah, is he anywhere now?
Yeah, he's in St. Louis.
Oh, still okay. Well, there you go. Well, it's still time. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll do some of those next week. But before that, this week, exclusively at the Patreon for Country Club tier subscribers, will be another annual tradition of ours, our season preview of season previews. We've already got a bunch set up. We're gonna have a good laugh at some of the things that people wrote about the Islanders in their season previews. One of which is a podcast, which we'll have some clips of. And you may already know what podcast I'm talking about, but if not, trust me, it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's over at the Patreon. That's going to come out on Wednesday. So sign up when you can for the Country Club tier, and you can hear that. And as I said off the top, there's a new thing now where you can join on a Patreon for free. You don't have to pay any money. You can just join for free. You'll see our weekly release calendar, so you know what's coming out that week, and you'll get any announcements. That's probably the best way to hear about what's going on with us, because the less time I spend on Twitter these days, the better. So do that. Sign up at patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety for ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, all that stuff. But also join for free, and you can get the weekly release calendar. Of course, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. They have a new album out. It's called God Looks Out for Fools, and you can hear it on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, and a whole bunch of other places right now. So check that out. Family Dinner, God Looks Out for Fools, new album out right now. And see them on tour where they are near you. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Learn more at fansfirstsports.com. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. Read and listen to his work at Action Network and at the New York Post. He has some interesting betting information for you. Maybe Patrick Waugh can help you out a little bit this year. It'd be kind of an interesting bet to make. Any final thoughts on what we talked about today, the last week of preseason coming up? I know you're not going to watch them, but you're going to hear about these. And anything else to kind of wrap up what we've got going on now?
No, be safe, Islanders. Be safe out there on your preseason games. And that's really it. And yeah, this is a big week, I think, coming up, because this is season preview week. So yeah, I think tomorrow, that Monday morning dump, we'll have some more content for the season previews of season previews. And we can tell you just how many people think that the Islanders need to can you just do something already? Which is very exciting. And so be sure to check that out. And looking forward to episode number 300. And yeah, should be a fun week. But most importantly, just I'm gonna sit back and hopefully enjoy getting one day closer to the games actually meaning something. Actually, the season actually starts next week technically, because the Sabres and Devils play overseas.
Yeah.
To start things. So
yeah, that'll be kind of cool. We should get, and we'll, as we're lucky because we're in the area, so we'll get to watch them probably on MSG. So that will be pretty cool. But yeah, stay safe. Don't get hurt in these last couple of games. And we'll be back next week to talk about the actual season starting and some, finalized roster and all that good stuff. Right. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again in a week. Take care. Bye-bye.